Hello and welcome to the dive presented by Honda. This is the semi-final episode leading up to this exciting matchup. We've got number 1 LPL versus number 3 LPL, number 1 LEC versus number 1 LCK, and we've actually seen this.
Where's number 1 NA?
Format.
Everyone else is there. Where's number 1 NA?
Mark, you've been gone for a while. You're going to do that at each stage?
No, just because you literally, it was all 3 number 1s, I just realized. It doesn't always go down like that.
Okay, it doesn't always go down like that, but it has the last couple of years. So looks like the best teams do get to the top.
Mm-hmm. Last year,
who would have thought
it was the exact same. But off the top, before we get too deep down the rabbit hole, some news just came out. Licorice released from C9 or being traded or whatever in favor of Fudge, who's actually going to be moved up to the LCS team. A lot of people were also pointing out that, this is coming off the back of a couple of months ago, I guess. This is like pre-OPL news, so things have changed a bit. But, they had like the I Will Dominate interview or whatever with their team where they're saying, team's staying together, guys. We did it. We're back for 2021. It's the same squad. And then this comes out, OPL news obviously came out. Things have changed. They decided to, go with Fudge instead of Licorice because it means Fudge is now not an import.
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting, but I want to say I'm surprised, but C9 has been doing this kind of stuff for a long time, and it feels like they are making pretty good business out of selling players and selling buyouts.
But the thing this time, let's go step by step. So first topic with this bundle of topics, I think, is the kind of comical scenario that we ended up in where they did this full interview announcement thing. We're sticking together, hoorah sort of deal, only to honestly, I wouldn't blame them, remaining flexible, always looking to upgrade. You mentioned Cloud9 doing a lot of controversial roster changes in the past. I think that is to be expected, and I don't blame them for that. I just this time thought it was weird to do the whole hoorah, we're sticking together thing first so early, unless you had actually locked those in.
That's definitely one of the weird things for me too, is because you would assume if you announce that so early, none of the players have problems with each other. There's probably no one on the team where you're like, ooh, let's wait for free agency and see what happens, because that's often kind of you want to see what's going on. But if you all 5 are like, hey, we love playing together, we're going out there. Mm-hmm. It is surprising to see this news change that a little bit, unless you really think Fudge is just such a monster and an upgrade, like you're saying. Or the other option is that it's coming down from management more so.
Well, and I mean, I don't think it has to be a problem with the player, right? Like if the coaches on the team are evaluating them similarly, or just think that Fudge has really, really good potential. And like, I'm sure that there are a lot of teams that are interested in getting Licorice, I would assume, right? Like, I think Licorice has been the best performing top laner over the last couple of years in NA, right? He even had a great, international run, obviously, in going to World Semifinals and everything. So I feel like if you get some huge offer, maybe that is what is changing things. I don't know exactly what the contract situation is. Like, if it's a buyout situation now, or if it's a trade situation, or exactly how that would work, because I assume when they, posted, oh yeah, the band's back together, that it meant Licorice was under contract, right? Because I wouldn't think that it was just expiring.
So I'm thinking maybe the reason that they did it is because of the fall of Cloud9 from the most dominating, there were people that were starting to freak out. And so maybe it was done to calm that. And that I can kind of see, in the moment, they're like, everybody stop freaking out. We're still going to keep these guys together. It's still a really good team. We still, have faith in all these players. But I think you do always need to. Off seasons are crazy. Every single GM I've ever.
So you're
talked
saying
to,
you think that they put that out knowing that they are maybe going to make changes?
I think that you should always remain flexible. What I'm saying is that I think, for me, the most likely reason they put it out was to calm down the public sentiment that was reacting to their downfall in summer and in playoffs. Now, I don't blame any team for always looking to have the best roster and upgrade and stuff. Moving on to the second topic of these bundle of topics with the Licorice trade, the most cool thing to me about this is when I first heard the news, my reaction and a lot of people's reactions is, oh, Jack, he hit the jackpot again. He's rich. You know, he's got an OPL talent. Everybody loves Fudge. Fudge is undisputedly, you know, best top laner for Academy. He's going to be an easy sell-off. Jack can continue his business of selling off
He
talent.
next leveled you.
He's going to cash in. But to me, this next step of them saying we're actually going to keep Fudge and then trade Licorice is so exciting, because I've been going off of, yes, you know, Academy playoffs and you know, player testimonials, and I have a lot of faith in Fudge, and I was super excited for him as a new talent. But this goes one step above that, because Licorice is still one of the best top laners in the LCS, and for them to say Fudge is better than that, you know, with Reignover and with all the coaches practicing right now, this to me is exciting news for the region, that our region is actually going to get a lot stronger, you know, at least for the top lane here, because now Licorice is going to go to another one of the teams, and they're saying that they have the internal info that Fudge is this good. Yes, he is this good. This is more confidence than, you know, just Academy stuff. And
do you think it's 100% that though, or that it can't be a business decision? Because like I look at it like
I feel like Fudge could sell for a lot. I don't.
Yeah,
I'm not
as
sure
much as Licorice.
if more than Licorice or not.
Licorice, I think, is considered the best top laner, and I think that it's like
more than Sunday.
I think so over the last couple of years, yeah. And Sunbay's also an import, right? I mean, I think Sunday has been better at times. Like, I'm not trying to debate that, but like if I take an amalgamation over the last 3 years, I would say it's Licorice. And
if you want to throw in branding and stuff as well, I mean, Someday is not a nobody in branding, but at least like I think a lot of people looked at Licorice in the 2018 run as like NA's great hope, yeah, kind of thing.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like to me, you know, they probably weren't good. They thought that the roster was locked and weren't going to make any changes, because that says that they didn't want to change Niski or Sven, right? And if you're not changing them, there was no NA top laner that they would really consider taking over Licorice. Yeah, and then the Fudge thing is interesting coming in, but I just like can't see it as considering that a big upgrade. Like, I think it was Diamond that was talking about how they actually did get to scrim their main team, and they like never won ever, right? You know, like it's not like I would expect Fudge to be a lot better than Licorice. It doesn't mean that he never had any good games against Licorice or anything like that, but it's like if this player is on the same level as Licorice or even better than Licorice, I would expect them to be like having some, you know, kind of like carry through top lane even in the scrims. But
the thing that makes me really actually think that it is this level of confidence for Fudge is that while Jack does make a lot of very business savvy moves and is very cutthroat, you know, every GM will tell you that, he also puts so much work into making the roster as good as he possibly can. You know, the huge buyout for Vulcan and all of that effort that they went through. So I don't think that he would make this move and be like, well, you know what, I can get a bit more for selling Licorice than selling Fudge, if it came at the cost.
It's triple.
The old,
yeah, what if it's 4 times?
Now we're getting into like everybody has a price to sale.
Yeah, that's
what is your price to?
And I think Licorice is probably pretty big, right? Like, I think there's a lot of teams that would want to get him. And just I'll let you get in, Mark. But the tweet, I found the exact tweet. So Diamond tweeted out from the Academy team, speaking from experience. This excludes C9's Academy. He's talking about NA teams not scrimming with their Academy teams. He said, our main roster scrimmed us more than any other team. We had 4 to 5 days in a row of scrims versus our main team. We only won 1 game in split 1, but it leveled us up for finals and ultimately helped us win.
Did you say that was from spring?
No, this was just in October. So this is like recently. So they won 1 game in a split versus them. So like, and to be fair, you can be as good as like your opponent. It's totally a team game. Obviously, C9 as a team was also getting those results similar against LCS squads too. It wasn't just Academy. From everyone I talked to, they were just absolutely dumpstering everyone in scrims the whole time. Even when they sucked in the LCS, they were still going like 30-1 every time versus the other teams. But it is just interesting, like hearing that they're that stark, and then being like, yeah, this guy's just as good as Licorice. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, we're speculating. I think that it's a vote of confidence.
Definitely speculation.
I mean, so
I don't. Yeah.
I was gonna say they usually, like how C9 operates with a lot of their improvements is that they'll have 2 people competing for a job if they're unsure about it. like when Bunny Fufu and Smoothie were a thing, and Ray and Impact, and they actually it's pretty common. I mean, now Reaper's not there, but I'm sure West Rice, and who's been there forever and stuff, have a similar mindset to it. So the fact that they're
Labyrinth and Garen.
Yeah, like the fact that they're just going with him the same way, like they were like, all right, MVP, you're out of here. Blabber's the guy. I think it does speak to Fudge's talent and what they're expecting out of him to just be the guy and be one of the best top laners in North America next split outright. So that's cool.
Yeah.
The other thing that is hilarious to me is all this stuff going around in North America about, should NA players scrim their academy teams and all this, like, I don't know if you guys have seen some of this conversation about players refusing to scrim their academy counterparts because they don't want to.
That was kind of old.
It came back up recently, but about like, oh, we don't want to scrim them because then we're just leveling them up to take our jobs. And I think a lot of people like laughed at that, but then here you go. It's happened. Licorice leveled up Diamond with all those times he beat, or not Diamond, excuse me.
With the one time in the whole split he lost to him.
Well, he just beat him down over and over, and now Fudge has become the best, and now he's taking his
two
job.
wins in a split.
Yeah, and Licorice is on his way to a fat paycheck probably when he renegotiates with Team Liquid.
And look what happens because of it. Our region gets stronger. If you're taking my perspective, that Jack is keeping Fudge because Fudge is very good.
Well, I'm sure he's going to be good, right? I'm totally not saying that. I just find it hard to believe that people are thinking he's going to be better than Licorice right away. I could believe, they think he has the future and he has the prospects. Everyone speaks very highly about Fudge. I'm excited for Fudge. I will say, I hope, like, selfishly, that Licorice ends up on an already really good team, and because I want our teams leveled up for international, and I think that's pretty exciting, right? Because Licorice is great, but I mean, if you just slap Licorice on Immortals isn't going to win Worlds.
Licorice, amazing. Team Liquid, go, please. Not amazing. Excuse me. Licorice Santorin. Excuse me. Licorice Santorin and Team Liquid, go. It would be amazing. There we go.
Okay. Perfect. All right.
Save.
Quarterfinals.
Let's do it.
So let's get into Worlds talk.
We are getting into the Worlds here. Quarterfinals. We can start right off the bat with Top and Fnatic. This is the first reverse sweep in Worlds history. A lot closer than people were expecting.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy to watch. Just the 2-0, how they went up 2-0. The fact that just Fnatic's bot lane was hard clapping that series. It was crazy to watch. And then once the first loss happened, everyone was like, no. In the third game, like when Top got their first win, I think everyone had that kind of like, it's never happened at Worlds before, but you see,
they're awake.
That was one of the. It was one of. Yeah, exactly. It's one of the moments because everybody will always tweet out that Alex Penn tweet of, "Oh, congratulations! Nobody comes back from a 0-2, ha ha ha," to make like the same joke of like, "Ooh, I'm jinxing them." But this was one of the ones where watching the game, you're like, whoa, you guys should calm down with those, joke tweets, because this is actually looking like it could turn the other way. I will say, though, to your point, Mark, like, it was so fun to watch because of the roller coaster that it was. This was not a series where you come into it and you're like, wow, first two games, Top Esports are just slugging around.
Yeah.
Like, this is a good team that's just shitting the bed for some reason. No,
except
this
for
is a good
Remember
team.
His Zoe game in game one, even in the loss, he was smurfing.
Yeah, this was a good team that was not shitting the bed. They were getting shit on by Fnatic hard. Like, Hylissang and Reckless, this is the most like juiced up I have ever seen Reckless. He just went full attack mode. And I think that this is his best performance ever. Despite getting reverse swept, despite him feeling bad and them getting knocked out. It is crazy with all the talks that we have had over this year and last year about older talent and trying to phase out aged out players. To have someone like this, Reckless, who's been playing for so freaking long, he has been playing since he was a baby. To now be peaking is so crazy to watch.
I just want to throw in on that whole like they weren't asleep for the first two games thing. I think the reason we've never seen a reverse sweep at Worlds is because that's usually why reverse sweeps happen, is that the favorite team didn't show up for the first two games, or the other team had like a good draft that they weren't prepared for or something. But you have this whole meta long tournament that's been evolving. These are the best teams in the world. They're not likely to show up to a best of five and fall apart because they've probably won their regions. Like we've said, like that's why I don't think reverse sweeps have happened, where they happen pretty frequently domestically. And that I think further speaks to the fact that Fnatic actually just showed up and we're playing really well, and it wasn't just top esports being bad or not taking it seriously or struggling with whatever the pick ban coming at them was.
Yeah, I mean, it was really exciting. Like, it's definitely one of the best quarterfinals that we've had. This year. It was very interesting. But like, I will say that it's got to feel so bad, from the Fnatic side, because it's not as though they didn't like make any mistakes in those games that they lost too, right? Like, one of the games that they lost, Bwipo got solo killed in tank v tank, right? Like, he solo died to the Scion immediately after TPing back, and every top laner knows that is like doom. And he died near his tower.
And
so
it wasn't just one of the games. That's the third like critical turning point game.
Yeah. So that one was really rough. I mean, they definitely like from the top perspective though. Like, I'm doing a lane kingdom episode on the bot lane, right? And they did create really big advantages, and some of them, especially, like, there was the 2v2 advantages. But like, watching it back, like, I know Jackie was getting a lot of flame, but like, I watched back from all the point of views. Yuyanja was trolling Jackie in some of these. Like, there's one death in the Ezreal game when they're playing Center Rakan. That was the first game where they got the 2v2 killed, and like, that was really nice. But like, almost every kill on Jackie, you can see Yuyanja is like not blocking the Senna W. And like there's one where he like clearly like steps out of the way of it, and it's the Ezreal, and just dies, and it's like, come on, bro, you're actually griefing him.
I mean, I have to go back to the last dive when we were talking about how Fnatic could potentially win this series, and we said through bot lane, and it was like, oh, but JackeyLove's so good. It's like, yeah, but his bot lane's a 2v2 lane, and Yuyanja is, I mean, not to flame the guy, but if you're talking about weak links on the team, he's probably the least seasoned, least experienced.
Yeah, most flammable. And he's actually very flammable.
Tends to perform the worst on the team, if we're going to put. And it's a great team still.
And by juxtaposition, right?
Yeah, like, exactly.
It'll be a cool episode just seeing like how well Fnatic bot lane was coordinating compared to the opposite. And it wasn't like these are like egregious errors, right? Like, he's just like reacting, like he's just sidestepping skill shots, right? But there's some times where you need to block things for your AD. But I will say it was really interesting. I felt like in some of the games, it was definitely like just like 2v2 Lane Kingdom style. In other games, clearly Fnatic was just like putting all their resources down, even at the expense of some players. I mean, I think it was, I can't remember which game it was, but the Nemesis Galio one, where it's like, he's literally not even like farming his lane anymore. Yeah. He's like 80 CS at 20 minutes because he's just a third bot laner, right? Like, and they're giving it over to Selfmade, I think, on the Graves. So like, there are these cool adaptations. It wasn't just about, the Fnatic bot lane 2v2. It was about the team strategy and them enabling them and like playing towards them. And I thought that was for me something that didn't take away from it. It like added to it because the game is so much about team play at the highest level, and seeing that it's like this coordinated plan and how they can execute on that, and even at times out execute top. So it was really, really an exciting series.
Yeah, I really wanted to point out like the overall view of the game for Fnatic, because everybody's focusing on, Reckless playing super well and a lot of these individual plays. But not only they're focused on the bottom side of the map, where Selfmade's constantly trying to go play and create plays on Yuyanja. Like, Fnatic's plan very clearly was identifying Yuyanja in the bottom lane and then trying to force every single play that they can around him. And in the first two games, top were it felt like kind of hubris, where they were trying to fight them off there, and they were like, no, we are better than you, and they would try and go save these losing situations, and they repeatedly would fall into the sunk cost fallacy of like, all right, Yuyanja's dead, JackeyLove's dead, we're still going down there, more people die, they lose more resources, they lose more towers. Meanwhile, Fnatic, when top would have an overloaded play on one side of the map, Fnatic would just not contest that, and they would take off the other side of the map multiple objectives. They didn't waste much time rotating between objectives or running to try and put out fires. Fnatic were very focused on opening up the strengths that they had in the games rather than covering the weaknesses, I thought. And I thought that was really a really focused plan that you need to have against a team like Top Esports, where you have to continue to pry open on your area of the map that is strong. Then though, if we get to the turning point, because we're all like all this great Fnatic stuff for the beginning of the series, the draft in the game 3. As soon as I saw Kha'Zix and Vel'Koz, I got very worried for them. And yes, it did start with Top Esports with a solo kill on top side, which is exactly what you need when you are down 0-2 in a best of 5 series, and all of a sudden 369 just gets a solo kill topside rushing Sheen in a tank v tank matchup, and it's after the teleport, and they get the rift herald, and they're able to get so much money off of this and snowball. That's one point where you start to get worried. And then the next draft that Top Esports pulled out, they didn't talk about this much on the game, but they drafted a huge range advantage with the Nidalee, Jace, Senna, and a Tahm Kench to protect them. And Fnatic went with, again, pretty short range, super dive heavy with a similar plan that's going to try and dive on bottom lane and try and force all these things. And Top Esports just continued to actually play through top side and then rely on range advantage later in winning a lot of these fights. And I just felt like this series, when I saw Top come back like that and adapt in the series in both their play and in their drafts, this actually made me really confident in them now going up against Suning for their semifinal.
The game 4 one's the most interesting one for me because they actually still started super favored for Fnatic. I think it started 4-0 or 3-0 in terms of kills.
That's the one with the big range advantage.
But I'm saying, like, they actually drafted a ton of engage and they got an early lead. And range advantage doesn't mean squat. Yeah. Fnatic got a huge lead with this comp with insane engage. Set, Galio, Ornn, Ashe. Mm-hmm. If you get a 3K gold advantage, I think they had pre-15 minutes. The game is mostly over. In air quotes, the way league players say, "Oh, it's over," because the range advantage, you're not going to get to priority first to be able to set up and force them into you with poke and stuff. And like usually, it's actually pretty easy to dive onto a very squishy team for the most part on the other side. So like, I think the way they came back is actually super impressive for Top Esports because Karsa did go bot. He did contest a play. They actually countered a Fnatic play to get back in the game while topside was doing well as well. But like. That was super impressive to me because it was a total flip of the style that we had spent so much time talking about, where Karsa's this, kind of like for the laners only. And he mechanically just played insane this game to get back into the game.
The dragon fight where they make the big comeback, they're still down to Fnatic in a lot of gold in the scenario you're talking about after Fnatic's early lead. I will say, as much as we're flaming Yanja, the Tahm Kench was so incredibly important there. Because this hard engage that you're highlighting, the Tahm Kench is the perfect thing that they use at this dragon fight to make sure the Jace Senna do not get caught. And then Karsa actually just plays out of his mind on this Nidalee. It was actually insane how he navigates this team fight with that much crowd control on the Nidalee and actually jumping in for these executions. As soon as you see that dragon fight with that range advantage, and you see Fnatic kind of lose steam in their snowball with the hard engage comp that relies on getting that full engage, that's where I started to see the full reverse sweep actually taking place.
I mean, I think Karsa, like, that game was insane, right? Like
the Nidalee one,
like the build was really good for it too, and he did the Roa Zonia's build after Runic Echoes because he was so strong and he knew he would have to be able to scrap, and like alongside actually having Conqueror, it made a lot of sense because he's able to actually have it fully stacked.
It's the 1v9 Nidalee
and jump in and scrap with them. But like Knight had such an enormous advantage over Nemesis too, right? Like I have the VODs open still, so I just checked at like 21 minutes. I just kind of clicked ahead. It's 211 CS to 114 mid lane, right? Because Nemesis is spending all his time going bot lane, and that was creating like the opportunity for Knight to really like take over, right? Him and Karsa, those were the two super strong members, and they were able to play incredibly well. Like I think Knight, even in the losses, was really looking good. He had the 4-0-0 Zoe game where like he was farming and roaming everywhere and having basically perfect CS. Like that was one thing that Nemesis like wasn't able to achieve as much in this series. Like it did feel like a pretty significant mid gap in that when Nemesis roamed, it was often like he had good roams, but it was at the expense of giving up his wave constantly and giving advantages over to Knight, where it felt like Knight could get all the farm and also make all the roams happen. Like the Zoe game felt so insane to me, even in the loss, where he has like perfect CS and he has killed someone top and bot lane and just like hasn't missed a minion. It's like, I find that so impressive.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And in the game where Nemesis is on the Galio, that's so memeable as like, he's become what he hated last year type of thing, roaming mid laner. They are in those scenarios. The CS is not going into the dirt.
But still, a lot of it was going into the dirt, even when you look at the total farm.
And my point is that you're sending a lot of this extra farm and these tower plates into a Graves, which is outranged pretty hard in this comp by everyone except this Scion that is allowed to build full tank, because the only AP threat is the Galio, and the Galio is the one picking up pennies. The Galio has 80 CS when everyone else has like 150. Yep. There's no AP
Scion's
threat here.
Frozen Heart plus Sunfire, just damage.
So you're facing a full armor stacking Scion who's been blasting top lane, just farming up the passive health as well with W, that now your Graves is like, all right, I'm more beefy than usual for the Graves, but he has a hard time getting past the Scion, and that's why I really wanted to highlight like how well TES played with these range advantage champions that you have, because to Mark's point, your biggest counter to that is always the hard engage and letting that Graves get close to you, but they played it really well. With the tools that they had.
It's really interesting to point out too when you combo that with the item builds, because they came under criticism a fair amount. I think I agree with the criticism, where it's like, oh, it's lethality Graves, it's not Bork Ashe for getting through this Scion. I think that they were planning on not dealing with the Scion, hopefully, because
it's a problem for later me. Future me is going to have to deal with this Scion.
Yeah, right now, what I want to do is I want to blow this stupid bot lane up, and you build lethality and you have all this great engage and you just try and get around the Scion. And so, like, I still think the builds were bad in that. Like, I think you need to come to terms with the fact that some team fights you're going to need to be able to get through that Scion. But I understand that their idea was like, hey, more Ashe arrows, blow people up, these kinds of things. But to speak to your point about how well TES played a lot of these fights to make sure that they weren't getting flanked and wrapped around on and one shot through set engages with the Galio on top of them and a Graves ult thrown over the top or something,
I also didn't even really mind the Essence Reaver build. I think that it's like, people talk, like I saw a lot of people on my timeline during that too, talking about like, oh, why didn't he go, like Bork Hurricane? But it's not as though that there was like a bunch of frontliners that you'd be hitting.
It was
anyway.
him and TK.
Yeah, and Tom Kench isn't running in like a frontliner. Tom Kench stands on his carries, right? Like,
yeah, so it's pretty much all Scion.
Exactly, it's just Scion, right? So like from that point of view, like I do think that to me, like the idea was, okay, well, Reckless is going to shoot out these arrows and like reach backline with volleys. Selfmade is going to fight around him with phase rush and have backline access with the ultimate. And Ornn, Galio, Set are all diving in, and you're kind of like blowing people up like that. But I think top played really, really well. I was kind of like hoping for the upset from Fnatic, because I think that's just exciting for Worlds. Yeah. Like I just like seeing, regional diversity. Like I got a few people on Twitter asking me like, why do you are you like vocal about like supporting some of these EU teams or cheering for the EU teams? Like he is always trash talking NA. Why are you doing this? For me, I want more than just like one or two regions to be successful at Worlds, right? I'm an NA fan first and foremost, but I want there to be regional diversity. I don't want it like, I hated when it was like everyone was like LCK Autumn, haha, right? Like it's you don't want to just watch a repeat of what one league is, because they're so dominant. I want LPL in there. I want LCK in there. EU staying around makes it more interesting of an event, and I hope that NA is going to be in there next year too.
Yeah, I super agree. This was something that I don't know how to phrase it exactly, but was almost really bad this year was regional diversity. If G2 lost to Gen G, we actually would have had 4 regional
LCK, LPL.
Yeah, but because they also happened in quarterfinals, it would have been the first time in World's history that there were more regional matchups than international matchups if they had lost. Also, if Fnatic had gotten first and played G2, or if LGD had gotten higher than Fnatic and Fnatic didn't get out of groups, LGD would have played top as well. So like there was a really scary chance that like, with the COVID year not giving us MSI as well, that we would have seen a grand total of 3 international matchups. And so like, I'm with you. That's why I wanted EU to do super well this year. Like, God, please give me some more interesting matchups, because I was going to save this for the DAMWON DRX one, but like, that's the resident sleeper. And you can still have good regional matchups. You know, Rocks versus SKT is a great one to point out. Even this year,
Suning JDG was super exciting.
Yeah, it can happen, but I think a lot of us do want to see the different regions go up. I think that's the big appeal of this tournament as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, it's the clash of styles and stuff. That's and matchups you've never seen before, right? And I think that's so exciting. And you know, the last thing I want to say, at least on this series, was that I know some people came away from this saying like, oh, like top looks really vulnerable, like they're not that good. To me, I almost kind of took it the opposite way. Like there's some of these players, you know, like haven't actually, you know, had international experience yet, right? And I did think JDG looked pretty nervous in some of their matchups. To me, the fact that top went down 0-2 and then had 3 really dominant games, because they were very dominant once they started winning. It was 29-minute win, 26-minute win, 25-minute win, right? And if you just look at that, like that seems pretty dominant. I think the fact that they have a series win under their belt, they're going to be more comfortable going forward, and I think that they are going to be pretty terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of cool hearing some of the comms and stuff afterwards, especially from like Dracula, who is, you know, been to the World Finals, won the World Championship before, and the kind of confidence that having players like him and Karsa is one of the most veteran, you know, most international appearances of any of the players that we have at Worlds because of his time on Flash Wolves. And having those players in a best of 5 series like this, I think just helps teams so much in accomplishing what you're talking about and getting some of the newer players past some of the hurdles of getting through reverse sweep possibilities and super high intensity matchups like this. And why I kind of saw it as a growing experience for them as well, as a team. So I pre-quarterfinals, I still would have predicted TES over Suning if that was going to be the matchup. But after quarterfinals, I'm also still
nothing's changed.
I mean, they 3-0'd them in playoffs,
see,
right? So it would
prediction
have to be like
changed.
a change for negative.
Yeah, the change haven't. There has been a change, but it isn't in the prediction. It's in kind of some of the reasoning and some of the changes that we've seen within the teams. Because I think after the Suning one, I have more confidence in Suning, but then some people kind of dipped on TS, you know, for if you ever lose games or whatever, then you know, that can be seen as a negative. But I just wanted to really highlight that top side of the map was so important for TS here versus Fnatic. Guess what? Top side of the map was also really important when Top Esports 3-0 Suning in the semifinals in the LPL. So we'll get into that when we talk about.
We could probably just jump into that right now, unless you have anything you want to finish on the Fnatic one, Mark.
No, let's get in. I mean, we're not going semifinal.
You don't want to do all the.
No,
I want to go over all the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth talking about them. I mean, we could do it if you want, like through the lens of looking forward, right? Like it is going to be Suning versus Top. You know, this series, I think the Suning versus JDG one, it did really like raise my opinion of Huangfeng. I'll say that. I already had a high opinion of him. Like I always thought he was a really good team fighter, but he actually just like hulked out so hard in this series, and I think that he played so well, and their team as a team, they played so well that it papered over some of the issues that were even seen in that series, right? Like he was such a beast that I saw almost no post-game talk about the fact that Zoom was up 40 CS as Renekton in a GP on Bin, like relatively early, right? Like it was like 120 to 80. Bin was getting trashed in these games. The only game he didn't get trashed was the one he started with a Sheen level 1, with 2 kills.
And then he did the trashing. You better do some trashing if you start with a Sheen.
I would beat Zoom if I start with a Sheen level 1. Like, you don't have to do anything.
I'd miss my Q somehow still.
I'm not saying
I hit the creep.
I'm not saying I would win the game. I'm saying I would win the 1v1 in lane. But I mean, that I think was concerning to me going forward against top, because I didn't think JDG. I think Suning played better. I also think JDG played worse than I expected them to in the LPL, just as a whole. Like, I had been very concerned about their level of play even in groups, and I tweeted about that. Like, it just wasn't great. Like, Yagao wasn't looking as good. I think that they had a lot of issues. Kanavi was so incredible. Like, a lot of people had him as the #1 jungler in the world coming into Worlds. He was a huge disappointment, I think, overall. Like, he had some good moments, but like, this was nothing compared to the level of dominance he brought in the LPL. So it was like, to me, it was like, yeah, Suni, you played well, but also JDG is worse. And the way you lost in playoffs was the top lane stuff not working. Even when they got bin advantages against these elite level teams, they couldn't actually convert it. And the same thing happened against IG sometimes in the regular season as well for Suning. So it's like, I have those concerns now against top, who I think has just looked better than JDG throughout. And the fact that if bin goes down in lane like he did to Zoom to 369, the rest of top is playing well. I think that you just should lose the game off of going down 40 CS like that.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason that I bring up on the top esports side, how important the success of 369 and the top side of their map versus Fnatic is because of those semifinals. Suning versus top esports, and this is why a lot of the LPL casters and LS are like, yeah, we're 100% going to ES, because they casted this live. Like, when you saw this semifinal, it was top esports continually getting counter picks for 369 on the top side. He had the Jackson to Mordekaiser one and the Quinn into Renekton one. I don't remember which one was first, but they were both just absolute slams. In both of the games, also, top esports focus on the top side with Karsa going up there. First kill of both of the games is them killing Bin. And the best game of that series for Suning, which was the middle one, was where Bin had to outplay 2v1 the gank on top side in his Jace game, and he got a counter kill. And that was like the best situation that they had. That was the game where they actually had an early lead. But the other ones, it was this counter pick situation on top side with Karsa going there early, and SOFM doing a lot of farming and out farming and doing the focusing on pathing. And the bottom side this whole time, while left to their own devices, was actually Jackie Love and Yuyanja CS lead both times, pushing at the tower both times. Yes, one of the games they had Caitlyn Lux, so that should go without question. But the bottom lane pushing while you have this top side counter pick situation, and then Knight is also roaming to go, get kills for 369 and stuff. So I think that Suning's evolution over this tournament at Worlds here is going to be really, 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 really important to see if they can have a different outcome here, because if they let top and 369 get these counter picks again, and Karsa is super active and proactive in getting these leads for the lanes, then I think it's going to be really tough, because as great as Hwanfeng's Jin was, he got it twice versus top at 369 versus top and Jackie Love, and they it did not amount to what it amounted here versus JDG. So we're going to have to see these real improvements from Suning in this matchup to have a different scenario.
Yeah, I think when you look at what Fnatic did to challenge top, I think it's a appealing to say that you think they can do the same, because Sword Art's so good and Hwangfeng is so good. But I think you have to give more credit to Hylissang and how nuts he is. I think it was game 4 when he just blew his flash in lane to trade summoners to set up for future ganks, just to get them low and have no summoners out. He didn't even trade summoners that effectively, but then he just kept hex flashing and stuff. And Sword Art's not that guy. I think Sword Art's incredible, but he's more of the roaming support than the Insano engage on bot lane and repeat gank setup kind of support. And I don't know if they're going to be able to emulate that because I think Sword Art was really good in that series. Huang Feng gets a lot of the credit for good reason with his Jin play, but I actually think Sword Art was incredible as well. He worked super well with SOFM to get them a lot of leads. Angel was pretty solid. I think both him and Yagao are not really the focal points on their teams in a lot of ways, so like it wasn't as big of a deal. So I don't know. I think as much as I liked what I saw out of Suning in that matchup and how they were able to exploit JDG, I feel the same way I think you guys do, which is that was a lot of JDG looking worse than what we were used to seeing in LPL over the course of the year. Yeah. So that's why I'm hesitant, like you're saying, Kobe, with how dominant the 3-0 was in summer playoffs already. Like definitely Suning are looking better than they were then, but the gap of the form that they have to make up, I'm not sure that they've done it, nor can they emulate the game plan that did push top to 5 games quite as easily, because 369 ended up on tanks almost out of necessity in that series. And I don't know if that's going to happen versus Bin, that you're going to be getting Ornn Sion matchups.
Yeah.
I would bet 10-1 that we do not see Ornn Sion
I don't think so.
in Bin versus 369. But
yeah, you never know. I actually really like the point about Hillsang, Mark, because when I was like in my mind, it was like, there was these huge advantages bot lane, right, against Jackie Love and Yu Yanja. But when I look back at all the VODs, like the CS was actually basically even in all the games. It was only the advantages through kills, right? And that was created a lot by Hillsang's aggression and Hillsang's like engages. And I do agree that like I'm not sure that they're going to have that same sort of like madman play style where they're just like going at him again and again and again like Hillsang will, and they kind of hard commit to bot. And if you don't do that, like as much as I felt like Jackie Love had one of his some of the worst games of his career, and like game 1 and 2, like he really didn't look that good. Mm-hmm. He still was like even on farm, right? Like he still was contributing. He was still going to be there. So if you don't pressure this guy, he will be a huge threat for sure. And he did come alive in the final 3 games and looked really, really good. So it'll be a really exciting semifinals. I really hope that Suning does compete and we get another really good matchup, because I do think that Fnatic top was really exciting. Suning JDG was really exciting. I don't want this to be like it was in playoffs where it's just like a slam 3-0. I don't
but you're
think
gonna
it will
predict
be.
it.
No, I'm not gonna predict a 3-0. I think that Suning is better than they were in the LPL. I think JDG was worse too, but I think it's both, right? I actually do think that Suning has leveled up for the most part. I'm still favoring top pretty heavily though, because I do think that if Bin looked like he looked against Zoom, it's going to be similar against 369. I think those guys are on a similar level, and I think that 369 is more out of the two, out of him and Zoom. He's more the guy to go for actual lane counters and try to really exploit those matchups, whereas Zoom just does it through his Renekton and his volley and stuff, and just really, really solid laning. 369 will have the same level of laning usually, and he'll actually go for the counter picks.
Yeah, and the thing is, even taking away individual player matchups, as far as skill, if you look at the options that are available to top esports, they're so much more versatile. When we're focusing on Bin picks, the Gangplank or the Renekton, like his champ pool and the diversity for the top side for Suning feels so much more restricted than 369. 369, like you're talking about, Mark, can play these tanks and the tank matchups when TS, are going to go that way. But 369 was so flexible in his picks, playing everything from the Sion up to Jax, up to the Quinn. Quinn is like one of the most risky counter picks that you can possibly have, and he literally used that versus Bin to great success. They hard push the wave. When he gets a counter pick like this, the reason it's so potent is that Karsa also plays to it. And I feel like that flexibility of top esports is going to still be a big advantage over Suning, because while SOFM is great, and SOFM did make influences on the top side, it wasn't at the same time as Bin. Going back and looking at this, yes, in the Jax Mordekaiser matchup on top side, Karsa goes up there as usual. They get the kill. Then 369 also gets a solo kill on Bin. SOFM answers, but it's not till Bin is dead. And 369 is pushing out the wave by himself. He's trying to get the wave to the tower. Then, SOFM goes up there, but he's not there with Bin. He gets a solo kill. So it's like SOFM has more money. He's got more farm from the hard farming from before, and he goes up and he gets this solo kill on the Jax that just, abused the Mordekaiser. But it was while he was pushing out the lane. So Bin isn't in a better situation after that kill because the wave still gets pushed in. SOFM is richer, but you still kind of have the same problem.
One thing I will say, like I want to contest a little bit that Bin isn't as flexible. I mean, Bin in the quarterfinals, spam Gangplank, but he also played Camille, Jace, Aurelia, Jax, all during.
Those are all carries.
Yeah,
yeah, but you said
that's what I'm talking about. He's not as
and
flexible because it's all carries. 369 plays way more of a range of champions. He plays supports, he plays tanks, he plays carries.
Yeah, like I think
it's not in your selection of carries.
Yeah, I think
it's in the style that you're playing.
Because I think what happened in the Fnatic series was Fnatic's like, all right, we're perma going bot. We're going to flash on bot. We're going to force bot all the time. You need a top laner who's not going to need a jungler babysit going on ever. And, is Bin going to want to play what is effectively weak side at that point?
Yeah,
and I think
that's what his GP is, but I agree. Yeah, they're just a less flexible team.
Right, because 369 goes, okay, my bot lane we need Karsa down there 24/7. This is not my carry series because my bot lane's imploding. So give me Sion and I'll go tank versus tank with this guy so we can play bot, which I think is the mindset that Tess was able to go into.
Yeah. And I think for Suning, like if you're a Suning fan, you are hoping that the fact that Huang Feng was able to like absolutely pop off against JDG makes you more of like a multi-threat team. Because the big criticism I had of Suning in playoffs and in the LPL against the elite teams was that they did the same thing they did against the bad teams, but it just didn't work, right? And against the worst teams of the LPL, SOFM camps top for Bin runs over the game, they win. Against the absolute best elite teams, when they would lose, SOFM would camp for Bin, but he would lose to 369 or the Shy or Zoom, and they just did the same thing no matter what. It didn't really work. You hope that maybe they're going to be a bit more versatile now with Huang Feng, being able to step up if he can carry. Maybe they can try to play a little bit differently, try to pick a little bit differently, because they do have a lot of knowledge of these teams, and they did play against top. But I'm still going to go top 3-1, I think.
38 games. It was 38 games ago that you saw a tank from Bin and Ornn. no tank or supportive like Lulu style champions.
Not even a Lulu? Oh no. Yeah, I'm with you, Zale. Same prediction for me.
Yeah. I wanted to give Suning more than the games that they got in playoffs, which was 0. So I'm undecided between 2 and giving them 2 and 3, but I'm still going to go for top esports. I know some people don't like 3-1 predictions. And
I love them.
We both just did them. They're great.
But I kind of feel like that's kind of what I'm willing to give at this point.
You don't want to agree with us, but you don't want to say 3-2.
Yeah, because actually, so let's talk pro Suning stuff because we've been so negative.
Crisis.
I'm gonna build up a little bit just as we move on to the next one, so we can get into finish this up. But I do think that some of the improvements that we've seen from Suning, Angel individually, I think has been playing really well, better than what we saw in the regular season from LPL. So I think he's been quite good. Now I'm not gonna all of a sudden put him above Knight or anything like that, and so it's kind of a difficult matchup to be in. But I think he's been playing really well and really well with the team. Suning have scrapped in a lot of these dragon fights or skirmishes around the map. And, if they can push more of those, I think they've been really, really good in those areas. So, okay, I'm going to buff it up and give Suning 2 games. I'm going to say we're going to have a banger 5-game series. It's going to be way better than the semifinals. Right. And let's get into some of the other ones.
All right, well, we got G2 DAMWON. We can kind of go over the quarterfinals, then lead that in to the semis. Let's start with G2 Genji because the other quarterfinal was so boring.
Yeah, we're even going to need to cover that one.
Well, okay, well, let's start with it and we'll just rip it off quick. It was domination, right? So.
Okay, I mean, if you want to talk about it, I mean, DAMWON DRX, that I honestly think I mean, we talked about this, Kobe. I said this to you. I don't know if it's if it's like recency bias or recency, like bias against, but this was probably the most boring Worlds knockout best of 5 I've ever watched. This was just, there was no tension. DAMWON was better in every way. It felt like DRX was unwilling to actually like push them or try to change their style. It just felt like you have two versions of the same thing and one is far better than the other. And it just felt like there was nothing going on here. Like DRX is, it encapsulated it perfectly. Like the game where they just don't even contest for soul, right? It's like, yes. Is this a really low chance to actually get something done here? It is. It's very low. But if you have like a 5% chance of that soul, that was better than their chance by doing nothing and just bleeding out of the game, it felt like. And I'm constantly disappointed by those kind of games. It honestly reminded me of the Dignitas games from the LCS, where it was just like this, that you get in this mindset where you're playing not to lose instead of playing to win, where you're like, oh, well, that's like a low percentage play, so I'm not going to go for that. It's like you have to compare your current odds in the game with the play. It's not, everything doesn't get compared to 50% because you're no longer at a 50% chance. You're at like a 5% chance to win the game. So if you get a 10% play, that's twice as good as your odds. Go for it.
The Dignitas, DRX equals Dignitas. Oh, just feels
I'm not
bad
saying they're the
say,
same team.
I know,
I'm saying that it was the playing not to lose.
Yeah, like the Karthus game where they had like I think it was 0-0, and like they're losing Baron or something, whatever.
And they seed Soul, they seed Baron, they like seed their inhibitor. It's just like, okay.
Yeah, and I don't think we're in that scary scenario for the rematch of Suning versus Top. This is kind of why I wanted to do this one right now, because that's what I want to avoid for the semifinal rematch of Top versus Suning. Because if that rematch comes out and it's Top with a counter pick and they start blasting Suning early on, I think people are going to be similarly checked out to the DAMWON DRX one, because DAMWON DRX,
it's part of the reason, way more exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be more action. It's definitely going to be more exciting, and Suning are definitely much more proactive and willing to take fights, and they want to outplay you in scenarios. But part of the reason why I think so many people were so checked out of the DAMWON DRX, yes, it was slow paced and they weren't doing stuff, but was also that we had seen the matchup so recently before in LCK finals, and people, as soon as it started happening, felt like they already knew.
And they
where
trashed them there too. 3-0 in
that's
both.
What I'm saying.
Neither one had any tension.
We've already seen this before, so we know where this is going. That sort of thing. So,
I think the play style is the other big factor, though, because if I'm just going to watch a team get dumpstered 3-0, in LPL, that's probably still a 20 kill.
You go down fighting. Yeah.
It's a 20 kill, 25-minute game. These were like, I don't know.
It's over.
It was like 5 kills. And like, I think that's why, like, if I was going to criticize, DAMWON at all, it was like, it felt like a little bit one of those series where it's like, we know we're better, so we're just going to grind them out. And you can't really criticize it because it's going to work against this team that you already know you're better than. They didn't have to have any flashy or crazy picks, it felt like. They didn't hard force anything when they maybe could have if they wanted to. And like, maybe the fights get a little scrappier and you're going to trade a couple kills back, but you can maybe blow the game open a little faster, I guess. But like,
I mean, game 3 was 25 minutes, to be fair.
I mean, they're fast games, but they're not.
The earlier games weren't that fast. It was 38, 36, but yeah.
Were they that slow? Holy crap.
The first 2 games were long. The last game was really, really quick. For me, I want to make it clear that I didn't like this series, but that is not a condemnation of DAMWON, because I think DAMWON is amazing. I actually think DAMWON is the one that has the least blemishes on their records of all the big teams that came into Worlds. JDG, I think, really underperformed. They're already gone. Top, still looked much more mortal, right? They dropped the 2 games to Fnatic. They were very close to going home straight up. DAMWON, they absolutely crushed the quarterfinals. The only game they actually lost in groups was the one to JDG, right? And that was after they had already locked first place. They looked so dominant. DAMWON really was like kind of giving me like the old school like LCK vibes, kind of like SKT style games where it's just like no matter what's happening, they're getting more from the map, they're taking away extra camps, they're always playing off perfect waves. And Wadid came in, and was kind of talking on one of the cooldowns after, I think it was after the G2 series, but he was talking about LCK in general and just the idea that a lot of these LCK teams want to play off like perfect setups every time. And so there's such a focus on like resetting the waves every time and having the perfect wave setup and map setup before you go for a play. And I think that really was like a big factor in why this series looked like it looked, because DRX was worse than their opponents, and they were always playing to have the perfect setup, and the perfect setup just doesn't exist in those situations, right? And that's where I think that, you have to take a page out of like a G2 book or a Fnatic book or some of these LPL teams, and just accept that it's like you can't always have the perfect setup. You have to actually look for fights and look for kills. And Madi was talking about how that was key. He thought in the G2 series against Genji, where it was like, okay, Genji's trying to set up a side wave, and G2 is just like, nope, we're just group 5 mid lane, and we engaged on you and killed you. You don't get to do that. You don't get to have that perfect setup. You have to find windows and opportunities to like try to punch holes in your opponent's defense. And DAMWON didn't really have any holes. DRX tried to do the same sort of setups as they did, and DAMWON played it out so well. Like, one thing I think that was really, really impressive from them in this series was just how they played around objectives. How like they always have multiple people sitting in fog. You're never quite sure where they are. They're set up in perfect flanks, so that if DRX ever enters the objective, they just are going to get slaughtered, which kind of made it so DRX never wanted to.
Yeah. I was going to say midway through your thing, I was like, man, I'm already over talking about this series. When you start talking about G2, I was like, let's get to the fun one.
Start talking about Genji G2 then, Mark.
Yeah, get me out of here. So I was the one who predicted Genji. Egg on my face. But what was funny, I think, is that like
that shit is all over your face. That is down your chest. That's a couple
on
the floor. Dude.
You just keep pelting me with eggs for that one. But what I think was funny is like game 1 happened how I would have like some of my analysis, like what I thought was going to happen in the series and why I was predicting Genji to win, actually happened in game 1.
Advantage, yeah.
Yeah, like their lanes were generally winning. They had CS advantages in I think every single position almost, aside from maybe jungle. They were controlling Drakes. They won the first.
Mark is happening.
Yeah, and there's a 2-1 trade in the top side. I think they got the first 3 Drakes. They got the first 2 Rift Heralds. They got the first 2 turrets, I think. And then you look and you're like, that's a 1K gold lead only. And then G2 is just moving around the map. They're avoiding them. They're pulling them apart. And eventually the gold lead just starts going in their favor after like a 1-for-0, and G2 just keeps making all these smart moves. And like before that game even ended, and I realized G2 was going to win that game, I was like, I'm so wrong in this prediction, because everything I thought that was going to go well for Genji did go right, and they still lost that game. That's when you're like, oh God, this is over. G2 is just such a better team.
I remember that was the one where they had the TF Camille Nidalee, and that was the one that really exemplified when remember when we were talking about the different styles.
Yeah,
and we were like, oh yeah, and they're gonna play the side lanes, and they're gonna pull you across the map. And that game, if G2 don't start making these picks, yeah, I mean Genji are set up really well to do it. But that's exactly what you do with Camille TF Nidalee, and G2 performed really well in it. I think the other big takeaway for me from this one was Caps roaming around and just stomping on, especially the Silas game. That was magnificent. That was some magnificent stuff right there from mid laner. That's what I like to see. Just roaming around, clapping everybody up, stealing them their own ultimates, killing them with their own ultimates. It was just like the perfect champion to stamp on your opponent and deliver that sort of loss. So while the first game, and I completely agree with Azael, I was trying to think back of another Worlds matchup that actually I was that bored with, of the DAMWON TRX one. I couldn't think of one off the top of my head.
Maybe the H2K ANX or something.
Yes, there's got to be something, but it was so boring. It's not in there
ANX
anymore.
had cool picks at least.
The value of it was just determined to be too low. So. But this one got me more excited for the matchup for G2 DAMWON again. Not only because there's going to be so much trash talk, because of the revenge matchup. DAMWON have been every single interview, every chance they get, been like, we want G2. We need to get our vengeance on G2. And G2 are like, I bet they do.
Did you see the Wonder press conference answer?
Yeah.
Where he was just like,
he's always
we're just waiting to see who wins between Top and Suning or whatever. He's like, we always beat Korea. And his teammates are just like, oh no, he's jinxing us.
This like that, this performance from Caps got me so excited for the Showmaker Caps matchup for G2 DAMWON. This one has got to be super exciting.
I mean,
because there's one more little thing. The talk that you guys are doing on Korea, and the perfect setups and all that. DAMWON don't have that hitch. They don't have to wait for those. One of the things I really want shown here is the versatility of DAMWON, because in the LCK there's a reason they stomped over him so hard and why everyone's so disappointed with the other LCK teams at Worlds. DAMWON is not that. They are so much more versatile. They will play much faster. They will cut corners, so to say, in the in those perfect setup blueprints in order to deliver those to you. So that's why I'm hyped up for this one.
I'm surprised that you're saying like, oh, DAMWON will be the ones to make it interesting, because I was thinking like even if
it takes two to tango, Mark. I'm not saying it's just fun.
It does not take two to tango in League of Legends. That I disagree. If you are down to be some hooligans, the matches will be hilarious and fun to watch.
I also literally said Cap's performance is the reason I'm so excited. So how am I saying that DAMWON is the reason, Mark? You put words in my mouth, Mark.
You're saying, oh, DAMWON can play this, they can do that. They don't have these hitches of the other. I'm saying, has G2 played a boring best of 5 in their life? Because I've seen DAMWON play boring best of 5s. I've seen them just last week play a boring best of 5. They're willing
in
to
the
grind
finals. The last two that they played were both snoozers.
It's not their fault. What are they going to do? Put out their chin and be like, right here.
They can be more pro. They can actually take less. You can take scrappier play. But I'm just saying, even if G2 get 3-0'd and get styled on, they will not go down like another team will. Like, they will do interesting stuff. So that's all I was going to say. I don't think G2 is going to get 3-0'd, but I think G2 has been for a while one of the best teams in the world to watch, just on a pure entertainment value. I honestly can't think of a bad best of 5 they've ever played. It's always entertaining.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they'll take swings, right? They're going to go for engages. They're not going to play to not lose. They're going to play to win. They're going to try to, even if it is a low percentage play, they will take those. And as a result, when they lose fast and they lose spectacularly. And, it's like the whole claps versus craps, right? It's, like he's going to find these angles. He's going to go for these plays, whether he's ahead or he's not, right? And I think that is something that's really, really fun with them. I will say, as far as the Gen G G2 series, I was really disappointed with Gen G's complete inability to play side lane. I felt like they just looked so out of their element. Rascal, it felt like, was completely outclassed and it just looked like frustrated at times. It was almost like the tilt push type of stuff, like not playing with any respect towards TF, just like running it down a side lane and dying with no one on his side of the map, no vision, no awareness of where the other team is. Then even in his Camille game, like game 2, Gen G tried to like basically steal away and do what G2 did to them, right? They took the first 3 picks. They took the Camille, the TF, and then Italy, and didn't really especially play the map that well with it. I think that
up when I saw that champ select, by the way.
G2 draft kinged them in the second game, though. Like, they had such good answers. They had the Shen that actually wins against the Camille early and can play side lane. They had the TK that answered all this hard CC. They had all this point and click CC plus Ashe and Leona in the bot lane. They had the Silas to match the roams. Like, they absolutely slaughtered them in that game too. And again, it just felt like almost like frustration from Rascal. There's this one point in the game where he's just like right-clicked on the mid lane tower and just dies for it, and it's just like, oh man, what is happening here? But
the styles, I like that was kind of expected for the style matchups. Maybe not that degree.
Yeah, I was gonna say that because when Kobe and I were debating on the last episode about who was gonna win, I think we said like one of us is going to be wrong and it's going to be a faster series, even if you think it's close. Like, I don't think if G2 is the better, macro team and can pull this stuff off, it's going to be pretty quick. Even then, I'm still disappointed from Gen G. Like, to your point, Azale, they look totally lost on how to play these things out.
Even their engages, like they were the first game when they were so far ahead and they finally force a fight, they're throwing life in and their soul laners and their jungler are like a screen away,
Well, I think like the game 2, they kind of got draft kingdom a little bit, but there's a period of time where you can potentially pull these plays off and get a lead. And if you have mid priority, the TK can't collapse on side lane quite as well, and all these things can happen. And like, they just almost never went to side lane. And then when they finally hard force and engage, it's like mid disjointed with like the TF just going in, flash gold card, like I think it was Flash Gold Card. Then Rascal went in after someone was dead. I think it was 4v5 or something. I don't know. The whole thing was a mess.
Yeah. But the thing to remember is that this, like, them slamming Gen G does not necessarily equate to them slamming DAMWON. And I did see like a lot of that sort of discussion of like, oh,
I
like
think
the
that's such a big
LCK.
no-no.
Yeah, I agree. Like the LCK, like teams are bad. Look at these teams getting rolled over. Blah blah blah. But DAMWON to me was such a clear step above the rest of the league, even in the even during LCK and regional play. Like I talked about this, and I got some flame actually for saying that sort of stuff earlier on the dive, where I felt like the LCK got a lot worse this year. It's just DAMWON is an outlier. DAMWON is really incredible. They are truly like an elite team.
Yeah,
I think they're heavily favored against.
League.
Yeah,
they were the ones saying that about LCK. Basically.
Well, they're heavily favored against G2, but I think people took offense to the fact that I was saying I thought the rest of the league was weaker, that they weren't as strong, and they did get all their teams out of groups. I think that is definitely commendable. And had DRX gotten a different quarterfinal matchup, maybe that looks different. But as a whole, the league was not nearly as dominant. But DAMWON is like their clear shining star. DAMWON could still very easily win Worlds. I wouldn't be shocked if DAMWON even like 3-0 G2. I think that this is a team that is so good and has made the fewest mistakes, the fewest holes in their play out of all their Worlds games. They just have one loss, right? There's not a lot to look at here and be like, that's the game plan on how to beat DAMWON. I do think, if G2 is going to do it, it has to come through G2, being incredibly aggressive, G2, disrupting the script that DAMWON wants to set up and play this perfect game where DAMWON is going to do this and then this and then this, and they're going to bleed you out. G2 needs to be aggressive. G2 needs to constantly enforce. If you can have those superstar performances from Caps and from Mickey and from Wonder, these guys playing at a speed and at a level which DAMWON doesn't necessarily expect or normally do themselves. That I think is the recipe, and that's what I'm hoping for from G2. Great drafting and incredibly aggressive play, pushing DAMWON and forcing them to take fights that they aren't necessarily prepared for or interested in taking themselves. Because to Mark's point, DAMWON could have ended those games faster. It felt like they were so dominant, but there's still like 38-minute games and stuff, in a 3-0 that no one thought was close at any point. G2 will push you and will make you play a faster game, and that's what I am hoping for, to make this really competitive series.
And my kind of point for DAMWON is that they, as a team, have already shown that they don't have to play those long-born games like DRX with the perfect setups. If people are expecting that, DAMWON have already shown that they are willing to cut those corners, and they specifically, even already at Worlds in the JDG game, they used the Camille, Nidalee, Twisted Fate, same style as well, and got that victory very, very clearly. So I really do feel like, and remember DAMWON's origins, where they came in, and I believe it was Nuggery, maybe it was Showmaker, who gave the interview talking about this year, how they've grown so much from last year, where last year they just used to be so rash and they had none of the perfect setups, none of these, LCK style, blueprints laid out, and they've incorporated those. I still think, under there in that, they rip off the t-shirt, more of a happy medium. And they're like, guess what? This is 20, previous DAMWON. It would be a bad thing for G2 because they lost last year versus G2. So, maybe it's not the best thing to rip that off. But that's why I'm so excited for this matchup, because I don't think DAMWON in the, takes two to tango thing with DRX and with those games. I think they did that because that was so clear. Those were so clearly wins.
It was free.
Yeah, those are so clearly wins for them. So that's why I want to see this DAMWON versus G2 has so much more possibilities for these explosive outcomes that you're talking about, and has the added extra trash talk of revenge going with it.
Yeah, and as much as people talk about DRX can play, or DAMWON can play this like also pretty scrappy style, I do have to say that I think G2 is smarter than just like a hey, we scrap you out and skip steps team. Like
they play the map so well.
Yeah, they're arguably the best macro team in the world right now. I don't think Suning or Top are necessarily better. I think the DAMWON maybe, but I think it's a different style of macro in a lot of ways. Because like even when they play TF Camille or maybe a more global centric comp, it often feels more about like pulling off chain dives and using laning dominance from Nuguri and Canyon's good pathing and Showmaker being able to get out lane. Whereas like that first game was not like that at all. They literally just went away from Genji the entire time for G2. And like the third Drake contest was one where I was really like, it was so good because G2 did contest it. They got shoved out by the Azir, but the entire time Wonder had not stopped pushing and trying to put pressure top. And so they were either taking top or they might have been able to get in and get the dragon. They were flexible the whole time. And it's very impressive, very creative. And it doesn't have to be, we fought you when you didn't think we'd fight you. It's like how they move around the map more so, I think, as well. Though obviously they're great at skirmishes too. They're way better in just 5v5 skirmishes or 3v3 skirmishes than Genji or a lot of the other LCK teams.
Oh, go ahead.
No, that was it.
I'm really interested to see what the draft is going to be for this one too, because I actually think so much of it is going to be dependent upon that. You know, like I think that DAMWON is such a solid team fighting team and like is so good at those setups and like, you know, how it almost felt like at times they like checkmated DRX around dragons and stuff. Like I think that they would probably want to, in their ideal world, play like a slow series like they did against DRX. If they can like slow down G2, I think it would look really good for them. So like I think there's going to be a focus on things like the Camille and the TF, right? We know that like Showmaker is an absolute monster on the TF himself. So I'm sure that they would love to contest these picks, and it's going to make like playing, you know, side lanes and playing split push in this sort of style like incredibly important on who's going to get it. So like going down that road, it makes me really wonder then who, if any, are going to have counter picks prepared for them, right? Like if it's TF Camille, who's going to play the Jax, right? Who's going to lock in these picks that are strong answers to them and try to get advantages through that creativity. And like that's where I'm really like holding out some hope for G2 and hoping that they can make the magic happen, because I think that DAMWON is just like a more solid team if they don't really like get some sort of edge there.
I saw the interview from Yankos after their series, talking about DAMWON and talking about heading into this matchup and the current meta, and it did make me super hyped to hear that he and G2 feel like they have so many picks prepared and they're really well adjusted to this meta, and they're ready to show that versus DAMWON. That gives me a lot of confidence coming into it, that this is going to be one of the most fun back and forth in a best of fives in the pick and ban phase. And we're going to see so many evolutions of these attempts at counter picks and execution in game. And so I'm incredibly excited for, as I started way back ago, talking about Cap's performance coming in, Yankos Caps versus Canyon Showmaker, the mid jungle of these matchups, in where Canyon has had some of the most dominant games. You were talking earlier, Azale, about like jungle rankings coming in. And I remember so many people had, like, you're talking about Kanavi at the top. And some people even had all three LPL junglers. And I think coming into the tournament, that was actually fine, you know, with Karsa and SOFM playing so well. But Canyon has just killed it for me at this tournament. I feel
7 Graves games, by the way.
Yeah.
7 out of 9.
So it is funny whenever we have these, you know, long streaks. I don't think it's because of being restrictive. I still think his Nidalee is exquisite. I think it's up there for me. I would debate. Yeah, I would debate him being best Nidalee. I mean, that's super hotly contested. But I'm just so excited because he has shown to be so aggressive from the jungle. And this is one of the matchups where you're looking at the lane matchups, and it is going to come down to champion select to determine, you know, who gets to have the pushing lane, who gets to have the aggressive move on this side of the map. And there's going to be so many more, I feel like, chess moves in this matchup.
Yeah. Are we ready for predictions?
Sure.
I feel like this is one where I have zero confidence in anything I say about what I think is going to happen in this series. I don't know how you guys feel about it, like in it, but for me, I'm like, anything
fake it till you make it, Mark. I'm gonna give you some advice. Just fake that shit.
Yeah, 3-2 G2, super confident. That is actually what I'll say.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
Yeah, I think I saw.
I thought it was gonna be all this talk and then just 3-0 DAMWON.
Oh no. I think I still think that there's probably individual advantages that are in DAMWON's favor, and I agree about like they don't have to play this slow, perfect kind of caricature LCK play style. But I still think that I've seen enough out of G2 to be really impressed by them. And some of what they said in their post game interviews about like, oh, well, they lost to Suning. It's like, well, Suning was actually really good, and they said they didn't really prep at all against them. And it made me feel better about some of what was happening in group stage, because that was one of the big concerns I had when they went up against Gen G, when I was factoring in region, playoffs. Regional playoffs were not that great. Then this group stage was a little hit or miss, lost to TL, lost some games to Suning and stuff. I mostly feel completely over that, and I look at that 3-0 and how dominant it was in the macro game plan setups. Caps is popping off. Jankos is looking really good when that was a potential concern about the meta for him. Doesn't look like actually a worry at all. Like, I actually feel really good about them. But DAMWON's still absolutely beastly.
Spears, though.
He doesn't need him. You talk about that one Nidalee build that's going full carry for Karsa. He's going Athenes, baby. Pop that heel down.
Mikhail's Nidalee. Let's go.
Get to work. There you go. Yeah.
Do you want to go or me, Azale?
You can go.
I also am 3-2, but I'm definitely going DAMWON. But I really think G2 have, like you're saying, shown so much. I was not this confident in G2 coming into Worlds. I thought for sure they were way worse than last year, but they have shown a lot of improvements over the course of this tournament, and with them being so confident in their super deep champion rosters, I really feel like that's going to be super important in this matchup for the pick bans, like we're saying. But I still have to give advantage over to DAMWON. They have been so clean to me in executing multiple styles. I don't think it will take them long to correct within the best of 5. And the added revenge aspect of looking forward to this all year, basically. These guys were given interviews when they were still playing in LCK, talking about, we want to beat G2, and I'm just like, they have been thinking of this is like one of those things you got a picture up above your bed.
You wake up in a cold sweat remembering what happened last year.
And if you are that focused and you dedicate, like, I feel like that's some anime stuff right there. Like the arc has been building.
So you're in 3-2.
I'm 3-2 DAMWON.
Yeah, I really want to believe that this is going to be a competitive series. I just kind of have this feeling, like this like sick feeling of like, ooh, but like, isn't DAMWON just too good? G2, as much as I want to say like, oh yeah, well, the 2 losses against Suning, well, maybe they didn't prep as much. Oh, well, the loss against TL, maybe that was like a draft thing or whatever. Like there are holes there's lots of holes that you can point to in games that G2 has even played at Worlds, right? They have not played a flawless tournament. I think that G2 at their peak can beat anyone in the world. The question is, can they like maintain that peak for like this entire series? Because I think that's the level that they're going to need to play at to take down DAMWON. I do think that Canyon is pretty heavily favored against Jankos, as much as like there's no questions about Jankos. You said, I think Kobe, or maybe it was Mark. I still feel like Canyon has a better Nidalee. I think that DAMWON plays better around Canyon by far than G2 plays around Jankos. G2 still functions, I think, like a team where it's the jungler enabling the lanes, not the lanes enabling the jungler. And for DAMWON, all you have to do is look at the first JDG game where they completely dismantled JDG off of this Lilia invade that was a standard LPL level 1 play, where they 5-stacked down on bot side, stopped the Lilia, and then take a look at DAMWON versus Rogue, where they play Lulu top, counter GP, and funnel a million farm into Canyon, and he just absolutely goes off and has like a 12 kill game, 14 kill game or something on the Graves. Like, I think that both DAMWON's preparation and play has been better than G2 throughout the tournament. I want to be wrong. I want G2 to make this really competitive, but I feel like it's going to be a 3-0 or a 3-1 for DAMWON, because they have been so good. Like, they have been incredible all year long. They dropped only 1 game in the tournament. Their preparation, I think, has been the best of any team in the tournament. And I think that across the board, all these players are so incredibly solid. So as much as I want to get all aboard the hype train, to me, like, getting aboard the G2 hype train is hard to do, because DAMWON has just looked so friggin'
I mean,
good.
you just don't have a ticket, Azale.
Yeah.
It's not. You forgot to go buy your ticket.
I don't want you to get away
It's
from
not,
me.
It's not that hard.
I don't like your vibes on this train.
I will submit to you that this does take with a grain of salt, but the Jankos interview where he's specifically addressing these issues that you're bringing up.
Just ignore everything you've seen on the Rift.
With
Trust me.
And their previous game with versus Gen G, which let me submit one more piece of evidence.
But again, were they playing to Jankos or was Jankos playing to them? Because I would contest that for the most part. I feel like G2 still doesn't play around Jankos to enable him. And I think that is so strong in the meta right now. So to me, that's a key difference between teams.
I would say Caps did at least for his part more to Jankos. My last piece of evidence. So G2, they 3-0 Gen G. The last time that DAMWON played Gen G, back in August, 2-1.
Oh wow! There you go. Yeah.
So just going by the numbers
right
here.
Transitive properties never wrong.
I love transitive properties, and I mean, FlyQuest Freak tweeted still has the best win rate against top of anyone in the tournament.
I'm rolling with percentages. Percentages are the best way to go.
I'm gonna go 3-1 DAMWON. I want to be wrong, but like in my. It's like heart versus head. I just think DAMWON has been too solid. They just haven't. The preparation has been amazing. All 5 players have been playing well. They just look like just this behemoth. They're my pick to win the tournament as it stands right now. Hopefully G2 is going to make it incredibly spicy. Hopefully they pull off the upset, but we'll see.
We gave our Suning top ones, right? I think we did at their Suning top part. We did that earlier. Okay.
Questions.
For the
Kobe.
Twitter questions, by the way.
Kobe, here you go.
The tweet
who's it from, Kobe?
Is not a question, actually. And first, before I go into this, I need to do another pitch for people to send in Twitter questions. And
we get lots of Twitter questions. We need more anchor questions.
Right. We actually just need more anchor questions. And the anchor is the one where you can call in and you give your voice, and then we play it here. So
anchor.fm, search the dive.
You can be famous.
How come our co-casters don't call in, huh?
Now,
Captain Flowers doesn't ask a question.
Now, into the tweet.
So who's it from, Kobe?
Vicentini. Vicentini. That's good.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good.
I was really nervous.
It
took me a pause.
It's because you had your finger underneath it and you're first grade reading level.
He sent in a tweet and an anchor question. And since
thank you, Guih.
We only got one anchor question, this is our anchor question that we're going to use. But I want to read his tweet first. He sent in his question to the dive. He says, at Esports Kobe, I know you will get it right this time. Boom, nailed it. P.S. I'm not mad at all if you don't. I just learned the right pronunciation 3 years ago myself. So boom,
there you go.
That.
Yeah, this was, if you didn't see last week's episode,
Kobe 3 years.
Kobe was on the struggle bus a little bit pronouncing the name.
If you have, I believe. Anyways, let's get into the anchor question.
Who's it from again, Kobe?
G. Vicentini.
Guih?
Hi guys, Guih Vicentini here. I guess I have to send questions until Kobe nails my name pronunciation, right? No, just kidding. I'm sure he nailed it this time, and if not, I'm not mad at all.
He's
I get the chance to send another question next week, so he can practice it. So we saw on the Fnatic test game that players default to comfort picks when their backs are against the wall. And I'm sure you know that I'm talking about Karsus Lee Sin on game 3. My question is, how hard is to predict this comfort pick in draft, and should you ban it? And just for curiosity, do you guys know how much the dive influences on team preparations? Thanks a lot, guys. Love you. Love the show.
It's their entire prep. I can answer that to start. No, it's all their prep, actually. They just listen to the dive, and whatever we say, they just write it down and they bring that on stage.
I'm actually so surprised when players message me that they listen to the dive. Like I've just gotten random messages of people being like, hell yeah, talk about this and I'm just like, what the hell? The players actually listen to this? What about when I flame you? Huh?
Like, I don't think we're saying anything useful, dude. You gotta have better time on your hands to I don't know, pull up a podcast.
I do want to address though the the comfort pick. He mentions Karsa's Lee Sin specifically. I thought it was so cool because they had a quick interview with Karsa afterwards, and he was like, yeah, I literally just prayed to the LPL gods and used Tian's Lee Sin skin. FPX, come save us now. We're down 0-2. We need the LPL gods to come save us. And then boom, they go at Lee Sin. And regardless of how much of that was a joke and how much of that was true, there's at least some of it that is true. And I absolutely love that he went to it and then it worked.
Yeah, I think it's always so funny when people go back to a comfort pick and they pop off on it, and then the entire community's reaction is like, I can't believe you left that up, even though they hadn't picked it in weeks, or months even. Like Froggen plays Anivia once a split.
And randomly in the middle of your best of 5 where you're already ahead with the strategy you've been going with,
you don't just suddenly
switch everything up and ban.
Yeah, in this situation, it's like Lee Sin is just generically a good jungler, but it's not the meta right now. I don't think that you need to ban it out. So I don't think that they did anything wrong by like not banning it out in game 3. For example, I'd also say that like when you come into preparation, with your preparation for a best of 5, and you just finished listening to dive, you wrote down all your picks, I think it's like you're not gonna doubt that preparation until it stops working, and you shouldn't, right? If you come in and you have your priorities on like what their picks are going to be and what your picks are going to be and everything like that, you don't need to change that up until it stops working, right? And Fnatic won the first 2 games going into game 3. They could have easily just swept that series and closed it out. Like, I don't think that they made some error by not banning out a comfort pick, because for the most part, like things like Graves, Nidalee, Lilia have all been higher priority in the jungle at Worlds. So I think you kind of just need to recognize that, and as a result, I think it's fine.
That would be so random just to just throw all the prep out the window and do that. I would say that both sides are correct though in the situation. When you're in the situation as the team looking to the comfort picks, all of your prep has not worked up to this point. You're down 0-2. So hell yeah, go for it. Pray to the 10 FPX gods for the Lee Sin win, and it's a playmaking champion. So all the better when the comfort picks are things that are playmaking, and like Huhi's Aurelion Soul or something like that. Like every time it would come up and people would be like, oh my god, you didn't ban it. It's when Mark is talking about it, we haven't banned it in 30 games. He hasn't played it.
And the people who have these comfort picks, they know the situation is better than you. So to Azale's point, like, just recognize the situation that this is a good time for it. It's like you don't know Anivia as well as Froggen that this is actually a good situation for it. Like and it's hard to recognize that when you have 45 seconds or whatever.
Definitely. All right, we got a Twitter question here. This one comes from DerichlovesTSM. It says, from 3U, which quarterfinal matchup did you enjoy the most? Also, which upcoming semifinal are you excited for?
Top Fnatic easy.
Yeah, I think it's got to be that. The roller coaster, the heart pumping, both sides playing well at different points in the game. The only thing I might put up there would probably
Suning
be
JDG's got to be up there too, I think.
Yeah, with the Suning one with Huangfeng's Jin. Like that was
there were some insane plays.
Yeah, that one was really exciting for me. Both those were the 2 clear standouts. As far as which semifinal I'm most excited for, I think I'm actually more excited for the all LPL one, just because I kind of have this bad feeling of like, DAMWON might just stomp. I don't think that's gonna happen, but both of them I think are really, really cool, because it's also really fun to see number 1 LCK versus number 1 LEC. That's gonna be really hype. I honestly think the last 3 series that we have, the 2 semifinals and the finals, are all going to be really, really interesting regardless of the results.
For semifinals, I'll probably go the G2 DAMWON one, just because it feels like a super hype rematch and all the storylines and stuff going on there, and G2's domination of LCK and stuff. Just all that combines to make it narratively a little sexier for me.
Love me some drama here.
Yeah.
Get some rematch. Either way, you're going to get some big trash talk. If G2 do it again, oh my goodness, it's going to be crazy.
I mean, Wonderworld's like, of course we did. I have to get to a raid, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I like that meme is so prevalent too, by the way. Everybody's just like
time.
waiting for his wow tweet after they 3-0.
I love the idea that they delayed Shadowlands so that he could perform at Worlds.
Yeah.
I
Which
can't
I'm
remember.
really salty, by the way. I was looking forward to that coming out
For some
right
late
after
night
the
grinding,
Worlds.
yeah.
Trying to fill up those hours. Someone tweeted out, I can't even remember who it was, but Wonder had some insane flank, and they're just like, Wonder on this flank for the Horde.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Keen. That was Keen.
That was Keen.
Lamb.
Yeah, that was
I thought
cracking.
that was really good.
cracking me up.
It was
That
funny
a good
because I looked at the replies too, and people are like, "Well, actually, he plays on Alliance."
Actually, all right. Well, that'll do it for this week's episode of The Dive. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you, Honda, for making this possible. I drive a Honda. They're great. Worlds resumes early Saturday morning as the last European team takes on the last Korean team. It's G2 versus DAMWON. Starts at 3 a.m. Pacific. Don't miss it.